and do not have a problem with the fact that you have an ICE director, not just an ICE agent, as some people have said, but the director of the ICE field office in the state of Minnesota, also serving as a pastor at City's Church in St. Paul. Someone help me understand how it's possible to hold both roles with integrity, with honor, because the gospel that I believe in, the foundation, says that we are to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Now contrast that gospel message to what we have been seeing by ICE and the terrorism that they have engaged in on the streets of St. Paul, Minneapolis, and surrounding suburbs, and including outstate Minnesota, where they have literally kicked in people's doors. They have dragged people out of their homes. As a matter of fact, on Sunday, while we were in City's Church, one of the most egregious things that they did was brought out a Hmong elder wearing a robe and some pajama shorts, it looked like, and they wouldn't even let the man put on full clothing, knowing that we're dealing with freezing cold temperatures here in Minnesota. And they did the same to a Liberian immigrant by the name of Garrison in North Minneapolis, where they kicked in the man's door and came in with big guns and took him out. And then NPR reported that when he got to the detention facility, they took trophy photos with him, like he was a slave or an animal that they caught out in the wild. And he wasn't the only one that they did that to. So somebody tell me, how is it acceptable for David Easterwood to be a pastor when he is condoning this kind of conduct? And not just condoning it through his silence when it comes to addressing it publicly with our community, but the fact that he was referenced in the lawsuit that was filed by the ACLU in December on behalf of 6 residents, calling out the retaliatory and abusive tactics by ICE. And you know what David said in that lawsuit? There's no evidence that this is going on. It's the protesters and their aggression that's at fault. Well, think about what Rebecca Good said, the wife of Renee Good. They had guns, we had whistles. So you are talking about nonviolent, peaceful protesters with whistles, rocks, ice, and occasionally fireworks being compared to these thugs coming into our community with high-powered assault weapons, who have flashbang grenades, who have tear gas and green gas, being able to unleash these military-grade weapons upon our community. And instead of these issues being addressed, what do we get from the federal government? Threats of investigating those of us who were involved in a peaceful demonstration at City's Church. The same federal government that made up lies after the brutal murder of mother and wife Renee Good, falsely claiming that she was a domestic terrorist, falsely claiming that she tried to run over ICE agent Jonathan Ross. How dare they? And then putting out a statement that they're not going to investigate him on top of all of that. And what did the Vice President of the United States say, who is also a lawyer? That this man has total immunity, which is false under the law. So these people need to be called out, and they need to be held accountable for continuing to assault the very people who are standing up for freedom, justice, and equality. This does not just affect immigrants. It's bad enough that it affects immigrants, but it also affects American citizens. And it doesn't matter whether they are adults or whether they are children. Think about the day that Renee Good was killed. That same day, ICE officers, federal officers, went to Roosevelt High School and they assaulted young people, pepper sprayed them and physically assaulted them. And then they tackled one of their staff members in front of these kids. Think about the family of 8 that was driving in North Minneapolis on the day that the Venezuelan national was shot in the leg. On that day, as that family was driving, so a mother, a father, and 6 children, ICE agents unleashed military-grade munitions on that family's vehicle, causing a flashbang grenade to go under their car and tear gas to go into their car. 2 of their children had asthma and could not breathe. But even worse, a 6-month-old baby lost consciousness during that attack. A 6-month-old baby, an innocent family, because of the lawlessness and the recklessness by ICE. Now think about that. And then you think about the board of City's Church. Instead of them saying, you know what, we made a mistake. David Easterwood should not have been allowed to continue to remain as a pastor on our roster at this church in light of all of the abuse and harm being levied by ICE, if they were true to the gospel that I just referenced. But instead, what did they do? Issue a statement calling protesters lawless. That's the kind of gaslighting that we're dealing with here. It's unconscionable and it's unacceptable while human lives are at stake. So today, we are calling for the resignation of so-called Pastor David Easterwood from City's Church. We are asking City's Church to operate in truth and integrity and the true meaning of the gospel, and to recognize that David Easterwood's dual role as a pastor and as the director of the ICE office is a most definite conflict of interest, and it cannot stand. Thank you. So with that, I am calling up next Monique Cullors-Doty, who is the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Minnesota and one of the co-organizers of the demonstration that we held at City's Church on Sunday. Let's welcome Monique.
Thank you. Aside from being co-founder of Black Lives Matter Minnesota, I'm an ordained deacon, and one of the roles of the deacon in the church is for correction. When I learned of David Easterwood's role in the church, in City Church, it was obvious that there was a need for correction. When we went to that church in peace, we did not storm City Church, as it's been reported in Fox News. We did not descend from helicopters. We did not have military gear. We walked in peacefully. This was not January 6th. This was January 16th.
Yes.
This was not an insurrection. This was a correction. Because you cannot stand in 4 walls and call yourself a church if you are not truly preaching, teaching, living, and walking the true gospel. It is an abomination for someone to put the title of reverend, which means reverence for God, before his name and act as a field director for ICE. There is nothing about the ICE operations that we have seen here firsthand in Minnesota that aligns itself with the gospel of Jesus Christ. There is not a teaching in the Bible that supports what is happening with the immigrant community here, what is happening with peaceful protesters, what is happening for those who are standing up for the rights of others, for those who are putting their bodies on the line, for those who have taken wrongful arrests and wrongful detentions. There is nothing in the Bible that supports what ICE is doing. And it is absolutely hypocritical for David Easterwood to be in the role as a director, a field director for ICE in Minnesota, and stand in the pulpit and proclaim the gospel. It is sinful at best. And for the church to continue to support that is problematic as well. I don't know what Bible they are reading. I don't know what pages they decided to skip, but it's not hard to find what Jesus said. You can find a Bible where Jesus' words are highlighted in red if you don't care to read the entire book. But it does not condone what ICE is doing. And I denounce David Easterwood as a minister of the gospel. I denounce him as a legitimate vessel of God, and I denounce him as someone who is able to bring people to the cross in truth and integrity and in honesty. I don't know if he's assigned his field agents when they kick in someone's door to hand them a tract to tell them about Jesus. Is that what he's doing? I don't know. But what I can see right now is that there is a church of people that are being led astray. From the response when we were in the church, there was no surprise about David Easterwood's role. As a matter of fact, they tried to deny it. They tried to deny it. It's very clear on the website that he is a pastor at that church. And when I say they were not surprised, it leads me to believe that there needs to be a further investigation into the other pastors of the church and how many other members of the church are actually ICE agents. Because birds of a feather flock together. That people who are walking in the fruit of the Spirit, who are walking in discernment, would know and understand and recognize the spirit of evil that has to be operating within that body. There is no way that someone who is grounded in the Word is going to just sit by and just sit and enjoy a song that's played over the speaker, as we heard during the service, and not question, not pause to question, why were these protesters here peacefully, hands up, don't shoot, chanting justice for Renee Good, chanting justice for our immigrant community, chanting in the name of Jesus because it is what was righteous. And the pushback that we are getting is absolutely ridiculous. For people who are saying, oh, they shouldn't protest in the church, what do they think Jesus did when he turned over the tables in the church? Gentle words and gentle means are for gentle people. There is nothing gentle about ICE, and there is nothing gentle about an ICE field director. So we came and we did what was necessary, and hopefully this opens up a greater conversation for the Southern Baptist Convention, which has already been debating and struggling with immigration and its stance, which is crazy in and of itself, that they would choose half to ignore the Bible and the other half to call for stronger immigration laws. When, let's be clear, let's imagine, how hard was it to come through Ellis Island for their ancestors? Not hard. So I say this, standing in solidarity with my other organizers and the other protesters that showed up with us. We stood on the side of what was right. We stood up for our immigrant community, and that's what we all need to do. So when we see other people wrongfully under attack, no one should just sit by idly. Come out of the comfort of your home. Come out in the streets. Find your place and see what you can do to organize, because it's going to get worse before it gets better. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. So as you can see, 2 faith leaders were responsible for co-organizing the demonstration that took place on Sunday. And I have to say that I'm really disappointed overall in our faith community. We have seen maybe a handful of pastors in this community, including so-called progressive ones, speaking out against this, but more need to use their voices, especially because of the fact that the Trump administration rolled back protections for houses of worship. That is something that the media has completely missed. They sent out guidance saying that ICE agents can enter houses of worship with a warrant. ICE agents have also arrested people in the parking lots of churches, waiting around for people to come out, which has had an impact on our immigrant community because many of those churches have fewer people attending because they are afraid. So if the Trump administration cared about what happened inside of a church, then he would have strengthened protections for churches in the midst of these ICE raids instead of weakening those protections.
Yep.
But we need our faith leaders to speak out. We see you at Target, but we need to see you on the front lines of this fight as well, calling out accountability for the federal government for their lies and manipulations and their abuse. Next, we will hear from Trahern Cruz, who is the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Minnesota and was also one of the protesters at last Sunday's demonstration. Let's welcome Trahern.
Jesus said, love thy neighbor, but the actions from ICE are very hateful right now. And for a pastor to be the director of a hateful organization in our community and having a church in a very diverse community, the city of St. Paul is one of the diverse communities in the country. And so for a pastor to be conducting ICE raids in a diverse community is very, very, very hypocritical to us. We came in, and the organizers came in saying, hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, don't shoot. But when Dylan Roof was in a church with black people, he prayed for them, and then he shot them and killed them. During the 60s, we know about the Birmingham era, where black churches continued to be bombed and bombed. We just came in for discussion, a discussion about humanity. So there's a very different ideal of how we were approaching churches and how white supremacists have been approaching churches historically. Lastly, our civil rights protections, racism is costing the United States trillions and trillions of dollars. And civil rights were put into place to address so that black people can be treated civilly. And so for Donald Trump, the President Trump, to reverse that is harmful not only to black people, but harmful to America and also harmful to the American economy. You see the job numbers are real low. You have historic job numbers, and a lot of that is coming from 300,000 black women have been fired since the Trump administration has came into office. And so instead of using the Department of Justice to investigate peaceful protesters, we think the Department of Justice should get back to investigating police brutality and police murders in our community. The Department of Justice should continue to investigate real housing discrimination against black people and other people of color, and education discrimination, historical injustices. That's what the Department of Justice should be engaged in, not investigating peaceful protesters. Donald Trump says that has experience with law enforcement in the United States, and he feels like it has been unjustly used against him. So we're demanding that he don't unjustly use it against us or anybody else in the United States. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from the woke farmer who was a part of our demonstration at City's Church on Sunday. Let's welcome him.
My name is William Kelly. I'm a combat infantry veteran. I'm a patriot. I'm a defender of human dignity. And now I'm being labeled as a domestic terrorist. We came into that church with peace, while they leave black churches in pieces. While the Somali community, Somali citizens are afraid to go to their mosques. Latinos are afraid to go to their churches. Whether they're citizens or not, they're afraid because this Gestapo, Trump's Gestapo, is terrorizing them. They're afraid to leave their homes. But we went in there and we preached the words of Jesus at them. Jesus said to love thy neighbor. Jesus said to welcome aliens from faraway places. But we're terrorists? They're calling me a professional agitator now? Well, yes, I am. I am an agitator because people need to be agitated. What they're doing to this nation is unconstitutional. It is inhumane. It is treason. It is disgusting. ICE is the complete opposite of Christianity. You cannot be an ICE agent and be a pastor. That is a white supremacist church. As long as that pastor is allowed to preach there, it is a hateful church. Those are not Christians. Those are evil people if they support that. So we will continue to fight. We will continue to stand up for our Black, Latino, and all communities because we care. Because we care about humanity, because we care about the Constitution. And I'm getting hundreds of death threats since that protest on Sunday. And I just want to say I will not be intimidated. I will continue my mission for peace. I will continue my mission to stand for the Republic, to stand for the Constitution, to stand for humanity. All power to the people.
Next, we will hear from Toussaint Morrison, who is an independent journalist and also an activist. He was not a part of the protest, so I'm letting the federal government know you don't have to investigate him. He was not a part of the protest, but he stands in solidarity with us. Let's welcome him.
My name is Toussaint Morrison, and I was baptized in a New Orleans kitchen sink by an Irish Catholic woman named Carol Van Dusen. And I don't know any situation where she would say that harboring an ICE field officer who also works at a church is something that Jesus would stand by. There is a reason why they wear masks. It's because they know that what they're doing is not right. It's because they know that their actions are violence and that their actions are only partaken against a certain demographic of community. They know that they're engaging in racism, misogyny, xenophobia, and anti-immigration. They are engaging in the worst kind of behavior. And the reason why they cover their faces is because they know that they're doing wrong. And when David Easterwood was found out, you could see it in the face of Jonathan Parnell that he was caught. You know when somebody knows that they done fucked up. And that was Jonathan Parnell. Jonathan Parnell couldn't do anything but go back and forth with Don Lemon and then tell him to leave. Jonathan Parnell had the audacity to say that he was in the house of God. I have to tell you right now, the house of God is wherever your community is. It is not in a place that harbors an ICE field officer. The duplicity to be part of ICE and be a pastor at the same time is some type of strange preservation of white comfort that's built on blood. That's right. And we can no longer allow it. The duplicity that's occurring right now is Lisa DeMuth saying that the actions on Sunday were totally unacceptable. Meanwhile, her caucus directs Nick Shirley to go terrorize Somali neighborhoods. Right. Directs Nick Shirley to go make fraudulent claims about fraud in black communities. If Lisa DeMuth looked in the mirror for 1 second, she might see the humanity in herself, in her own black skin, of the same people that she has been trying to criminalize throughout her entire campaign run to run for governor. And make no mistake, Chris Medell, who is now trying to protect Jonathan Ross and is running for governor of Minnesota, that is not just in a vacuum. There are many people like Chris Medell, and this is the Minnesota that we want to change. This is the Minnesota that we're addressing. This is the Minnesota that is inside of City's church. And when their white comfort gets disrupted, the look in Jonathan Parnell's eyes is all you need to take a look at. It's because they want to preserve their way and they don't want to address the black and brown blood that fills the streets. They don't want to address the duplicity. I wish that black security guard right there who told all these protesters to move would say the same thing to ICE. But they stand here and do the okey doke and he's going to tell people to move again, but he's never going to do it to ICE. He's never going to hold his co-workers accountable. He's never going to do it. And that's the small thing that we're asking right now. Is that if you're going to direct terror upon Somali daycares, if you're going to demand accountability, take accountability for your own actions. Take accountability for your own words. And it seems that there is a large narrative where nobody wants to do anything about that. The house of God is on 38th in Chicago. The house of God is in the car where the children were, where the flashbang went underneath. The house of God is wherever your community is. And these places that are devoid of it need to be addressed. David Easterwood was found out. That's it. He went to sleep just fine, profiting from pain. He went to sleep just fine, knowing that nobody knew his name. He went to sleep just fine. And the second that he was found out and called out, what did they do? They wanted to point the finger at everybody else that was protesting there. because that's what you do. In abuse situations, the first two actions afterwards are isolate and then manipulate the narrative. And that's what they're trying to do right now. But let's not get it twisted. David Easterwood needs to step down from City's church, and then the rest of these ICE agents need to be held accountable for the murder of Renee Good and for the shooting of a community member on the north side and for almost killing a 6-month-old child. All power to the people. All power to the people.
Next, we will hear from Michelle Gross, president of Communities United Against Police Brutality and a longtime advocate for accountability. Please welcome her.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Gross, and I'm president of Communities United Against Police Brutality. And I stand in solidarity with the people that protested at the city's church last Sunday. What they did was noble. What they did was correct. What they did was holding truth to power, and that's very important. I want to point out that while the FBI is claiming that the DOJ is claiming that they're now going to investigate people who peacefully protested against ICE, they do no such thing when ICE shows up at churches, when ICE shows up at hospitals, when ICE shows up at schools. They do no such thing, because this is about a terror campaign, and how dare the community push back against the terror that has rained down on our neighbors.
That's right.
We are not here for it. People, thousands of people, more than 25,000 people across the state are literally out daily warning their neighbors, helping their neighbors, using their whistles, buying groceries for their neighbors, doing other mutual aid things, getting people to their doctor's appointments, all the kinds of things that people who love each other and care about each other in our communities do to stand up for each other. And that's what these people did too. They were standing up for the rest of the community that has been victimized by these ICE agents and that ICE director. And what they did was righteous. I stand with them, and we will not allow them to go down because of this beautiful work. Thank you.
Just a note to Christy Nome and Cash Patel. Michelle Gross was not at the protest, so you don't need to investigate her. But who you do need to investigate is Jonathan Ross for the killing of Renee Good. Before we take questions, I want to point out one additional thing that I think is very important that we've seen happen time and time again, especially since 2020, after the Minneapolis police killing of George Floyd. We have seen it on the front lines of ICE demonstrations, and we saw it after Sunday's demonstration at City's Church, and that is attacks on the free press. We had several independent journalists who were a part of the demonstration to document, not to participate. There is a difference. We saw Don Lemon, who is a national independent journalist, who came here, announced on Facebook on Saturday, I'm coming to Minnesota, saw the flyer on my page for the action, and showed up without knowing what we were doing and where we were going. And suddenly, he has been demonized by the Trump administration, claiming that he led the protests. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, 4 black women led the protests. No matter what we do, our voices get erased. Whether we're taking on the system, taking care of our community, there is an erasure of black women. But it was 4 black women who led the protests. But Don Lemon came to document what was happening. And anybody who watched his footage, you saw that he documented our voices, and he specifically talked to parishioners to get their side of the story. That's what journalists do. They talk to multiple sides to try to get information. But to try to demonize this man, and there were even memes, I'm hoping there were memes, that came out last night claiming that the Trump administration was going to prosecute this man under the Ku Klux Klan Act. Right? That just ridiculousness. The weaponization of our history against us as Donald Trump and his administration tries to erase our history. But we stand in the spirit, in the strength, in the power, in the resistance of the people who came before us, whose voices would not be silenced against white oppression and terrorism and white supremacy. That is why we are still standing strong. As you have people in our community afraid for our safety, texting us, sending us messages that are on there. Do I look afraid to you? No, because I'm standing in the power of the Almighty God. And God is our protector. And at the end of the day, like Queen Esther said, if I perish, I perish. But I will speak the truth. Period, point blank. So these attacks on our press need to stop. We have a journalist here who was attacked by ICE within the last couple weeks. Tear gas, in spite of having a press written across his chest, and also shot with a marker round or a rubber bullet, and now has a boot on his foot for the next 4 to 6 weeks. We've had journalists with their eyes shot out, journalists physically assaulted, pushed to the ground, in spite of ICE and law enforcement knowing that they're journalists. I got a call just yesterday from a local journalist saying that the city of St. Paul was planning to investigate the protests. Well, for those who don't know, City's Church called the police on us, even though we were peaceful and nonviolent. So the St. Paul police did arrive, but they stayed outside of the church until we left. They didn't approach us. They didn't say anything to us. I find it ironic, if that is true what the journalist said about the city of St. Paul investigating our protests. Why haven't you investigated the conduct of the St. Paul Police Department 2 days before Thanksgiving when they aided ICE in terrorizing our community? Where are the results of that investigation? That happened in November. So you can investigate all you want, but you need to look first in your own house at your behavior and how you have participated in the abuse by ICE. So with that being said, we will take questions.
Nakeem, I'm wondering, what is your reaction to the DOJ saying they are investigating your actions and that group's actions in the civil rights investigation?
They say they're investigating everyone. They have an investigation right now against Mayor Jacob Fry, against Governor Walz, Cuomo. I mean, James Comey, I'm sorry. The list goes on of people that the DOJ investigates under false pretenses. And yet, we're asking you, investigate Jonathan Ross for the killing of Renee Good. Why isn't that the headline? When you all know that we're being gaslit by the federal government, why do you keep running with headlines from a federal government that is corrupt, that lies to the people, that unleashes these beasts upon our community to attack vulnerable individuals? And when you're gaslighting, you normalize this authoritarian behavior. So that is my response. Yes.
You brought up the Klan Act, and just in the last couple of weeks, DHS posted a song that was written by the Ku Klux Klan on their governmental social media. Also, Donald Trump, just a day before the protest, said that affirmative action hurt white people. And so I think it feels to me, I'm curious your response to this, it feels to me very intentional and targeted that they bring up an act that was created because the Klan terrorized black churches.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to respond? Go ahead.
I would just say that it's churches, but it's also pretty much all parts of civil rights that this current administration is challenging and reversing it. But in the long run, it hurts the administration who is doing it. Racism hurts America. I think Citigroup said it cost America like $16 trillion. And so Mr. Trump and his administration can practice racism, which will continue to hurt America in his economy that he presides over, or he can be inclusive and do the right thing and enforce civil rights laws when it comes to housing discrimination against black people, immigrants, LGBT communities, investigating schools, and investigating our police departments like they're supposed to. Our consent decrees have ended here in Minneapolis, which our community fought real hard for. The consent decree in Louisiana has ended. There's consent decrees with Breonna Taylor. That consent decree's over, but the crimes and the harms from law enforcement are continuing to impact our community. So if Kash Patel Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, if they want to be on the right side of history, they'll do the right thing and investigate real crimes that are happening in the United States.
Go ahead, Tucson.
I also wanted to answer, that's because the Trump administration runs on pure hypocrisy. So they're going to use lines from a song from the Klan and then utilize a law that was made because of the Klan. It's pure duplicity and hypocrisy. So after this man was shot in North Minneapolis, what happened was Julie Nelson of KARE 11 said, wow, there's some really foul language out here. Now, how can you ask somebody, how can you start policing somebody's language after they've been shot? How does that work? How does that work? If somebody just took one of y'all's cameras and slammed it against the ground and then said, wow, you're getting really, really uppity right now, what would that say to you? It would mean that that person can do no wrong. They want to shoot somebody and then criminalize their widow for being there. And I think you can find it all when Trump was being interviewed. They said, Renee Good's father was a big supporter of you. And then he said, well, yes, she said some tough things. It means that he feels he can do no wrong. And you know that this is all falling apart because Axel Henry, we saw SPPD out there with ICE, and then he stood there and buckled under pressure when Georgia Ford made an interview with him. And he kept saying, well, you know, I think these people are making some wrongful accusations. Georgia Ford says about what? He says, oh, you know, I can't talk about that. That is the type of cowardice and the type of hypocrisy that we're not only seeing in the Trump administration, we're seeing it in major media outlets. And I'm going to finish on this. There's three parts of Minnesota. There's one group that is being overtly racist and being loud and proud about it. Chris Medell, i.e. There's a second group that's being very racist, but wants to be quiet about it and doesn't want anybody to hear about it, i.e. City's Church. And then there's a third group that's tired of getting shot and then being told to shut up. Those are the three groups.
And when Toussaint just said SPPD, he's referring to the St. Paul Police Department. We also got reports that 25 Minneapolis police officers have left the force to join ICE. So because they're now under a state consent decree where their behavior is being monitored, think about that. Now they will be free to help rain terror on the community through ICE, where there are not those safeguards, where the Constitution is not being followed, where the law is not being followed, and where Judge Menendez's temporary injunction that she just issued Friday is still not being followed.
The church put out a statement today, and it said that accosted members of our congregation, frightened children, created a scene marked by intimidation and threat. Conduct is shameful and lawful, will not be tolerated. It goes on to say, we welcome respectful dialogue about present issues. I want to ask you two questions. One, what's your reaction to this part of their statement? And also, did you try to talk with them before going into the church?
Number one, that's a lie. Number two, that's a lie. And number three, that is a lie. To have a church sitting here perpetuating lies to try to criminalize nonviolent peaceful protesters is on brand for why they would have a pastor doubling as the director of ICE in the state of Minnesota. The reality, if anyone watches any of the videos from any angle, what will you see? Nonviolent peaceful protests. I got this information on Saturday. We went into the church on Sunday. And when I stood up after this is what the pastor prayed. Dear Lord, we pray, as part of his prayer, that you will chasten us and that you will help us to get our house in order. And then he finished his prayer. And then I got up from my seat and I said, excuse me, Pastor, did you just pray that you want God to chasten you and to help get your house in order? And he said, correct. And I said, well, help me understand. How is David Eastergood both the pastor and an ICE agent? As soon as I mentioned his name, he started yelling, shame, shame. That was an opportunity for open dialogue right there in front of the entire congregation where he could have addressed it. He was not interested in addressing it. When I looked into his eyes, just like Toussaint said, he looked like a deer caught in the headlights. So I knew full well that he knew that David Easterwood was playing both roles as a pastor and as the overseer for ICE in Minnesota. So no, they weren't serious about dialogue. At no time did he try to engage in dialogue. As a matter of fact, the parishioners were more interested in engaging in dialogue with peaceful protesters. If you look again at the videos, you'll see many conversations between parishioners and protesters that were happening in real time as the demonstration was going on. Because some of the protesters did not know that David Easterwood was a part of ICE. As a matter of fact, some of them said they were afraid of ICE, right? And then if they want to talk, I'm a mom of 4 children, right? I don't want to see my children cry, right? I saw one little boy sitting in the pew who was crying. I had the husband of a progressive pastor that night come onto my Facebook page and say, you know, there were children crying, you know, and they were afraid, and, you know, sitting in church when you guys were there. I said, there are children in their own homes, sitting there afraid because ICE has kicked in their door, has held their family at gunpoint, forced them out, dragged them into the street, cut women out of seatbelts and pulled them out of cars and bashed their windows. There were kids at Roosevelt afraid when ICE members tackled them and pepper sprayed them. Now you tell me what's the difference. So please don't go there. Another gaslighting question, if you ask me, and I'm not here for it. Yes.
Real quick, just to clarify, should ICE agents, ICE officers, should they operate in any church in any capacity? Absolutely.
I do not believe that they should. If the church is a sanctuary and a sacred place, as the Trump administration has pretended that they believe that it is, why would Trump deliberately roll back protections for churches under his administration? Why wouldn't he strengthen those protections? So, Michelle, do you want to add to that?
Well, I think, you know, just to validate and say what you said, ICE, as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't operate anywhere. I'll start with that. I think we should abolish ICE, and that is my position. That said, they most definitely have no business being in churches, in schools, in clinics, in hospitals. Any place that has been a protected place previously needs to go back to being a protected place. And I want to say one more thing. You know, the DOJ is so interested in investigating a few peaceful protesters who told truth at a church, but they haven't done anything to investigate the more than 24 mosque bombings you know, attacks on mosques that we have experienced in the state of Minnesota. Minnesota has more attacks on mosques in our state than any other state in the country by far. And this administration, this DOJ has done nothing to address the vandalism against these mosques and the bombings and the fires and all of the horrible things that have happened in those mosques. And that's because they're racist and they're not interested. It's not about religion for them. It's about race and about, you know, backing up white supremacy. And we are not here for it. Thank you.
I wanted to say one thing. I'm sorry. Renee Good's children are crying. As they talking about children was crying in the church. You know, Renee Good's children are crying. They would never get a chance to see their mother again. And just like you stated, like, when they come to our churches and our mosques, they leave them in pieces. They don't leave in peace, just so we clear. We come at them with cameras, we come at them with kids and what have they come at us with guns to kill us.
And bombs.
What can we do as journalists, as photographers, as just bystanders to basically protect our civil rights, protect ourselves, and not only that, my thoughts and prayers with all of our families, because we know Minnesota is under attack and we're being threatened abysmally. What can we do as independent people and as mothers and fathers just dealing with this gut-wrenching situation?
I mean, the reality is that Congress has sat down on the job. They are enabling this unchecked power and authoritarianism that we are experiencing. We know that 28 members of Congress, all Democrats, came here on Friday for a congressional hearing about the attacks by ICE in Minnesota. But they still have limited power while Republicans are silent and complicit and hold the balance of power. And you can see the local Republicans here aren't doing a darn thing other than stirring the pot. They ought to be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen, for condoning it, and for helping to facilitate it, as was mentioned earlier by Toussaint Morrison. I would say on a state level, of course, our state government can use the power of law enforcement anytime, just like they do against citizens. They can direct the local police department, the state troopers, the sheriff's office, they can direct them to arrest ICE agents who violate the law. but not a single one has been arrested. That gives a signal that they can act with impunity. That's part of the problem. So the best thing that we can do is remember the mantra, who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe.
Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe.
Yes.
I got a question for Will. After the DOJ announced the investigation on your social media, you said, come get me, Pam. So could you expand on your response to how you're feeling about it?
I mean, what we're seeing around this country is they're using their political influence to attack people that disagree with them. They're going to come at me with charges, and I'm not scared of that. There's no base for these charges. I did not block them from, their service. They welcomed us in. They never asked us to leave. The police never came in and removed us. So we didn't stop their service. In fact, people were still praying the entire time. The music was still playing the entire time. So, Pam Bondi, you want to come and arrest me? You want to come and give me charges? So be it. And for all the people giving me death threats, threatening my life, kill me. Go ahead, kill me. Because you know what? As Fred Hampton said, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution.
Welcome back here to the afternoon shift for about the last hour. You just heard from downtown Minneapolis. It looked like that was at Government Center. A press conference urging the resignation of Pastor David Easterwood. Just to provide a little bit of context of what you just heard, David Easterwood is a pastor at City's Church in St. Paul, where protesters disrupted a service on Sunday after activists determined that David Easterwood works as the acting director of ICE's field office in St. Paul. Now, it's important to note, and they noted this too, that Easterwood was not leading Sunday service. Lead pastor Jonathan Parnell, that's who you heard Nikema Levy-Armstrong referencing multiple times. He was the one that was confronted by the activists. And in a video of the protest, when Parnell heard the activists talking, and you just heard Nikema saying, that's when he said shame and shame and shame. So the federal government announced an investigation of possible criminal violations pertaining to the City's Church protest, which took place on Sunday. And as a note here from at Fox 9, we want to apologize for any expletives or any foul language that you may have heard during that protest as well. Press conference as well. We brought that to you live. Okay, it's almost 4 o'clock here at Fox 9. We do have another hour of the afternoon shift for you. Coming up next, we're going to welcome in Jenny Nguyen. She is the co-owner of a coffee shop in Minneapolis called Caffeine. It has been a rallying point for the community where citizens can drop off items for donations to support residents impacted by ICE. And then after that, we're going to shift the conversation to basketball. A big game for the Gophers tonight in Columbus against Ohio State. Bringing me the news is sports reporter Tony Liebert will be coming in and talking all about that game that's happening at 5:30. Jenny Nguyen from Caffeine coming up right after this commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We got another afternoon shift hour for you, bringing you all the way up to the 5 o'clock news. Welcome back here to the afternoon shift. Caffeine is a Minneapolis coffee shop that leans into its Vietnamese roots. It's also been a rallying point in the community where citizens can drop off items for donations to support residents impacted by ICE's presence here in the Twin Cities. Joining us now is the co-owner of Caffeine, Jenny Nguyen. Jenny, welcome to the afternoon shift. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. Before we get into this donation drive that you all are putting on, let's talk about the roots of Caffeine. Like I said earlier, this is a coffee shop with a lot of Vietnamese roots. It is an immigrant-owned business here in the Twin Cities. Can you talk about that and how ICE may have been impacting your business and you personally and the business directly?
Yeah, so I can definitely start with me personally. It's been honestly quite scary. We have two young children, one of which is in school, and we've been getting tons of emails from school and notifications saying that, ICE is in the area. There's ICE present, and so if there's a delay in the bus drop-off, here's why. And this all started probably 2 months ago now at this rate. And in terms of the business, I would say we're less concerned about how it affects the business, but we're more focused on how it's affecting the community. And it's really disheartening to hear that people are so scared to just leave their house because our customers come from all different types of backgrounds. People who, love Vietnamese coffee, people who just love supporting us and love supporting us in the Linden Hills community. And so it definitely has been really sad to see. And we wish we could help more than just a donation drive. And so we're doing the best we can, and we're trying to continuously provide a safe space for those who can come and feel safe enough to come and hang out at the shop.
Jenny, let's talk about that donation drive that you referenced there.
Yeah.
What exactly is it? What really inspired you all to put it on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can't take all the credit. The organizers who started this is Lana, Sade, and Maddie. So they first started it, organized it, kind of planned all the logistics. I was fortunate enough to join in and provide our Caffeine downtown location space. It's still in construction right now, and so it was such a great place, really central for everyone to make their donation drop-offs. And this was our first time doing it, so we were just figuring it out as we go, and we found a flow, and we saw how much pain and anxiety and agony the whole community is in. And so we just took this opportunity to create an emergency donation space, and we did it over 2 days. It was a long, basically 12 hours every 2 days, or for the 2 days, and we provided care kits and essential kits and even things such as like toys for schools. Our main donation drop off were schools, and from there the school were able to take it and distribute it to the necessary families that they know that are in need.
Yeah, Jenny, I think I know why these families might need these, but there's probably some viewers out there that are thinking like, why would somebody need a care package or a donation drive? Can you tell people why people may need something like what Caffeine is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, it's very heartbreaking to hear and know that there are families who are, they don't feel comfortable going outside. They know that their color of their skin, maybe their accent even, is being targeted if they step out and if they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And ICE has been just causing a lot of turmoil here. And these families are just too afraid to go outside, and so they need food, they need toys, they need non-perishable items so that they can feed their family, stay safe, and stay in shelter, because we don't know when we could potentially be next. And so we put together these essential kits so they can stay safe and stay inside as needed. And, this is the first time that we've done this donation, but it's definitely not the last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you all still taking donations? And if so, what do you all need?
Yeah. We are still doing small donations at our Linden Hills location. We will spread that out to the downtown location as well once we have that officially up and running. We are just needing right now, honestly, non-perishable items, stuff like pasta, rice, canned goods, and we are also currently running a art donation drive. And again, these are going to be distributed to families specifically, and those for the kids, unfortunately, who also don't feel safe going outside, and they're inside, so they need something to do. And this world is really cruel right now, and half of these kids honestly probably don't even know what's going on. So this is our way to just keep them sheltered, keep them protected, and allow them to have something to do to kind of keep the joy and the spark going, even though whether they know what's going on or not, definitely just to try to keep a little light inside.
Yeah, I love that. Keep a little light inside. Jenny, where can people go drop off these items, or maybe they can go, and if they know a family in need, maybe they can go and try to get a package to bring it to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now our Linden Hills location is 4503 France Avenue South. If you just look up Caffeine Minneapolis, it should pop up on your Google or Apple Maps. We've also done a lot of direct aid as well. So if anyone knows of a family in need, please reach out to us directly, either through email. You can find our email on our website, or you can send us a direct message on Instagram. I handle all of that, so I can definitely put some items aside and you can come pick it up from us at the Linden Hills shop.
Amazing work that you all are doing, Jenny. And while you donate, you could probably get a good cup of Vietnamese coffee. I guess before we leave, what makes Vietnamese coffee different than just a regular cup of Joe from somewhere else?
Yeah, our Vietnamese coffee is made with Vietnamese beans. So we have been able, very fortunate to import beans from Vietnam directly here to Minneapolis. And then we're roasting them freshly weekly. And what it is honestly, it's a little 2 times the amount of caffeine as your regular cup of coffee. So we do not recommend going over 16 ounce, that's for sure. And a lot of it is stemmed from our roots of anywhere from the classic Vietnamese coffee to our egg coffee, which most people, if you've traveled to Vietnam, you kind of know what that is. And then the one that I take a lot of pride in is our pandan latte. And pandan is a leaf. It's an extract. It's a really beautiful green color, and it's used a lot in a lot of Vietnamese desserts. And so we've kind of translated that and made it into a syrup and to add coffee on top, and it's phenomenal. Everyone loves it. And if you get a chance, I would definitely say go grab yourself one of those 3, depending on how much caffeine you need. It's always a nice treat.
Jenny, you're talking to somebody that hasn't had a drip of caffeine in about 15 years. So I think one even shot of caffeine coffee would throw me through the roof. But it's great hearing about all of this. Do you all serve any Vietnamese food as well? I know banh mi is something that a lot of people love. Is that available at the store too?
It is. We only have the one. So we have our classic cold cut Vietnamese banh mi, and that is available every day.
Awesome. Jenny Nguyen, the co-owner of Caffeine in Minneapolis, doing amazing work, trying to help out the community. I know we put up their address there, folks, earlier. Go pay them a visit if you have any perishable items that you want to donate, and they will make sure that a family that really needs it will get it in their hands. And there's the address. Thank you, Paul, once again, 4503 France Avenue South. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it, and great to hear about your business and all these great initiatives that you all are doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. That was Jenny Nguyen, the co-owner of Caffeine. They're putting on a donation drive to help out citizens directly impacted by ISIS presence here in the Twin Cities. All right, we're going to shift the conversation just a little bit. We're going to stay local, but we're going to bring it to sports. We're going to bring it to the Minnesota Golden Gophers men's basketball team. They've lost 3 straight games now, but they're on the road tonight at Ohio State. We're going to bring in Tony Liebert, a sports reporter from BringMeTheNews.com. He says Ohio State is one of the most underrated teams in the Big Ten. A huge opportunity for the Gophers to pick up a quad 1 win, which would ultimately help their resume to get into the NCAA tournament. Lots at stake tonight for the Gophers, and Tony Liebert is here to break it down all right after this commercial break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back here to the afternoon shift. At 5:30, the Minnesota men's basketball team will be tipping off in Columbus against Ohio State. It's a huge opportunity for the Gophers tonight to get back in the W column. They've lost 3 straight games. Joining us now is Gophers beat writer and Bring Me the News sports reporter, Tony Liebert, with the freshest mustache in the state of Minnesota. Tony, I feel like it's getting stronger and thicker each day I see you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I try my best.
You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. The Gophers right now are not doing as good of a job as you are with your mustache. They've lost 3 straight games. What's going on with the Gophers? Because I feel like it was just yesterday we were talking about them storming the court. I think they've beaten 2 ranked teams at home. What's up with this momentum now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough season for Nico Medved in his first year when they had Chauncey Willis Jr., their starting point guard, go down with a season-ending injury. Robert Viola, their starting center, went down, season-ending injury. But once the calendar flipped to December, they kind of turned a corner, and they've been competing with everyone they played against, and they've kind of been punching above their weight. And they went on a hot streak there with beating Indiana at home, Iowa at home. And it's just life in the Big Ten is hard, especially when you're only playing a 7-man rotation. And they were competitive against USC, competitive against Wisconsin, lost at the buzzer there. And they had a good effort on the road against Illinois on Saturday, but they're getting tired. It's a grueling season, and it's kind of their injuries, I think, are catching up to them a little bit.
Yeah. And the season, as grueling as it is, it's getting pretty short here. It seems like college basketball season lasts forever. It's pretty much over in about a month, a little less than a month, about a month from now. And then you have conference tournaments beginning. And then March, believe it or not, folks, is just 6 weeks away. It's right around the corner. No leading bracketologists right now have Minnesota in their NCAA tournament field. What do the Gophers need to do, save winning the Big Ten tournament, of course? What do they need to do to get into the tournament?
Yeah, it's definitely road games. I'm not a bracketologist myself, but the amount of research I do, and I know a couple professionally, and winning games on the road is the biggest way to boost your resume, and that starts tonight against Ohio State, who is projected in the field, according to many bracketologists. And then it's taking care of business at home. It's easy to say to just win your games, but it's the opportunities that you have to take advantage of. And it's beating teams that are projected in the field. And it's Ohio State on Tuesday. And then there's a ginormous opportunity this Saturday that seems like it's shaping up to be a fun game. First game with students back on campus against Nebraska, who's kind of the story of the Big Ten this year, undefeated team. But it's going to be a tough road because they didn't really have a challenging non-conference schedule. So they have to dig themselves out of a pretty big hole. Losing those close games at home to Wisconsin and USC are certainly not going to help. But when it's year one for a guy like Nico Medved and you had the injuries like I mentioned, it's hard to not be encouraged at the level they've been playing the last month.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Nebraska game at home this week in Nebraska, I think ranked 7th right now. And I think in Nebraska's history, they've never won an NCAA tournament game. So this really is kind of a magic season for them. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure about that stat. Let's go to the road games here. Minnesota's only played 3 true road games this season, 1-2 record in those games. But they're going to be on the road here a lot. 3 of their next 4 games are on the road. The only one of those 4 that's not is the one that you just mentioned, Saturday at home against the 7th-ranked Cornhuskers. Does the lack of Minnesota's experience this season on the road, do you feel like that's kind of catching up with them or might be hurting them a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but road success is what separates like good teams from great teams in the Big Ten. And just from a personnel standpoint, it's hard to think this is a great Gophers team, but it's really encouraging to see how they've came out and started these games on the road. Because it started with Missouri in the non-conference. They had a very tough first half. It was close there. Purdue was close. They beat Northwestern, and then the Illinois game on Saturday. That in the first half of these games, they've come out, and I think all of them have been within 3 points. So that's a really encouraging sign because we talked about how long the college basketball season can be. And at the end of the day, it's hard to believe, but they still are student athletes. But when you have all these travel days plus class plus the winter, it's really easy to have a game where you just don't get up for it. And you start out slow, the other team jumps out to a 20-point lead, and we really haven't seen that yet. So I'm expecting another encouraging effort tonight against Ohio State, and I think there's plenty of encouraging signs for the future of the program based on their success of the road so far this year.
Yeah, you mentioned they're student athletes, a lot of them just 18, 19 years old, and it's generally not a good idea to bet on 18 or 19-year-olds because we know how we all felt when we were 18 or 19, all the range of emotions and everything that we experienced. Speaking of betting, Minnesota, they are a 7.5-point underdog tonight. Who do you got? You think Minnesota can win this one outright? Do you think they can at least cover and keep it close? How do you see this one shaking out?
Ohio State's an interesting team because I think they have either 4 or 5 losses and they're by an average of 4 points. So their season could really look a lot different. They've been competitive in every game they played, but I think Minnesota matches up well in this game. Ohio State's not a super deep team. Bruce Thornton, one of the best scorers in the Big Ten. But we've seen Langston Reynolds, the Gophers guard, perform like one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. He did well against Bennett Sturts against Iowa. Did well against John Blackwell until the end of the game, I guess, against Wisconsin. And he did relatively well against Illinois with Kylan Boswell and Keaton Wagler. So I expect that matchup might lend in the Gophers' favor. And then if you look at the rest of the roster, I think it's not this huge talent difference. But then again, the Gophers only have a 7-player rotation. And it's really 5 that play 33 minutes or more. And then Grayson Grove and Kai Shinholster off the bench contribute when they need to, but it's a really short rotation, and that catches up to you. I expect this game to be competitive, and the Gophers could keep it within that number. It's always hard in college basketball because then free throws get involved at the end of the game. But I'm expecting another hard-fought road game, but I think Ohio State pulls away late. Wins 81-76.
That is a win in certain states of this country, Tony, for Minnesota. So we'll see if they're able to keep it within the number. Going to go off script here. Just going to ask you a final question. Last night we saw Indiana win the national championship, the 3rd straight national championship for college football by a Big Ten team. For a Minnesota fan, and you write a lot about Minnesota football, does it hurt even just a little bit to see Indiana's success with Curt Cignetti? Because if he was able to do that there's certainly no reason why that can't be done in Minnesota. Indiana was the losingest program, and they still might be in college football history, and they just won a national championship. That's something Notre Dame hasn't done since 1988. I mean, I could go through all the different schools that haven't done anything recently that are of note. Penn State, we can go through the list here. Does that hurt just a little bit as a Minnesota fan, knowing that can happen in Minneapolis? If it can happen in Bloomington, it can happen here. It's just not, I don't know. What's your perspective?
I think Minnesota fans should be encouraged because I think administrators and the higher-ups and the board of trustees and all these board of regents and all these decision makers at these institutions now are going to be trying to replicate it. Like you mentioned, Indiana was the doormat of the Big Ten. They kind of just didn't take football seriously. I think their president had an interview on the Pat McAfee show where she said she talked with the AD and they kind of need to start treating football like more than an intramural sport. And they did. And now I don't think they're going anywhere. We saw what they did in the transfer portal. They're here to stay as long as Curt Cignetti's the head coach. It's easy to say, just go find Curt Cignetti, which is not easy. And you need a dang good football coach and you need a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. But they showed if you care about football, you build the infrastructure, you put in the resources, it can really be done at any of these major institutions, especially in the Big Ten, especially a place like Minnesota, that when they're good, the fans are going to show up and there's going to be support. But there's so many things in Minnesota that a 7-5, 8-4 season, there's a lot of people that just don't get into that. They're like, they just don't care. So it'll take the program, the school, the university to raise the standard if they ever want to reach that point. But I think a story like Indiana is great for college football, and it gives plenty of these programs hope that have never played at that level because that was Indiana 3 years ago, and then they just made the right hire, and now they're at the top of the sport.
Well said there, Tony. Well said. You are the voice of Golden Gophers sports. We do appreciate you. You can find Tony on bringmethenews.com. Tony, I didn't build a graphic for this, and I apologize. What's your Twitter handle and your Instagram handle?
Just at Tony Liebert. That's Tony Liebert, and you can find all my stuff there. And like Adam mentioned, on any Bring Me the News socials and website, you can find some great content to read over there.
Tony, you become a good friend, and you still have the freshest mustache in the land of 10,000 Legs. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Thank you. That game is at 5:30 on Big Ten Network, which I think is a property of Fox. So there's some little internal programming there. All right. We are going to go to commercial break. When we come back, we are going to bring you a press conference, something that you have not seen on any Fox 9 app, online, on Fox 9, the linear television today. A press conference was held by Minnesota physicians to detail obstructions to care caused by ICE agents in Minnesota. So we're going to be bringing you that press conference when we come back from this commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We're bringing you all the way to 5 o'clock for the Fox 9 News at 5. Welcome back here to the afternoon shift. There have been a ton of press conferences related to Minnesota and ICE that have occurred today. President Donald Trump had a press conference earlier today marking the exact anniversary of his 1 year in office for his second term. Greg Bovino held a press conference. He is the Border Patrol commander. You saw that on Fox 9 with Rob Olson as part of All Day. We just brought you the press conference at the start of our show around 3 o'clock about protesters calling for the resignation of the city's church pastor, David Easterwood, who they protested inside that church on Sunday. There was a press conference that kind of fell a little bit under the radar today that you have not seen anywhere on any Fox programming. It was a group of Oh, it was a group of Minnesota physicians that held a press conference to detail obstructions to care caused by ICE agents in Minnesota. Now, this is a highlight, a collection of some of the more notable moments of that press conference. Let's play that in for you right now.
As a pediatrician working in the heart of downtown Minneapolis, and as a mom whose 10-year-old co-wrote this statement with me, I can attest firsthand that ICE enforcement in our communities is directly harming my patients and our kids. And to other parents watching these atrocities unfold in front of them in their communities, we should all be very, very concerned. And here's 3 reasons why. First, exposure to violence and the threat of family separation causes trauma for kids. When ICE enforcement occurs in or near places where children should be safe, like homes, like schools, like hospitals, and we know they're in hospitals, right? Children experience fear that disrupts their sense of stability. We've seen kids face down in handcuffs in front of their public schools. Teens have been ripped from their homes without coats in sub-zero weather and without their parents present, let's just be real. Parents have been detained while waiting for the bus with their kids. Family separation is not a temporary disruption. It is a traumatic event with lifelong consequences. And for Renee Good's children, I know other parents are thinking about them. They deserve better too. We need ICE out of our communities. Second reason why. Children and families are avoiding potentially life-saving medical care because they are terrified to leave their homes. When ICE agents are in and around our hospitals, which again, we know that they are, including my own, parents are rightfully scared to come in. I've seen babies miss their jaundice follow-ups or straight up say, hey, I refuse to come back in. I really don't feel safe here. We've seen moms that have called and said, my baby's having trouble breathing. I don't know if I should come in. Unacceptable. And we've seen a burst appendix that could have been detected days earlier had somebody not been afraid to come in. Across our state, kids are missing their routine checkups. They're delaying care. They're not seeking help. And they're weighing this fear of putting their family at risk against the health of their child. This is an impossible decision that no parent should ever be in. Healthcare settings need to be safe, healing spaces, and we need ICE out of healthcare. Third and finally, when ICE is perpetrating violence in communities, kids get caught in the crossfire. Consider Destiny Jackson and her 6 kids. They were coming home from a basketball game. They were in their car. They were not a part of a protest. And they found themselves in a car full of tear gas with airbags deployed. Destiny could have been any one of us as she administered CPR to her infant child. And when their parent asked for help, there was a delay in getting emergency medical care. Again, we see a theme. This is unacceptable. Chemical weapons have no place in our neighborhoods or in our schools. They can have life-threatening and long-term effects on children. It's only a matter of time before a Minnesota child dies as a result of this recklessness. We need ICE out of our state. To close, I have a message for Minnesota parents. Your pediatricians and all of us are doing every single thing that we can to mobilize. We're working to get kids life-saving care in their homes and in their communities. Your pediatricians are still here, and we're all in this together. I'm going to try this in Spanish. Estamos aquí para ustedes. Llámenos y trabajaremos juntos para conseguir la atención médica que necesitan, ya sea en su comunidad o en su casa. If I could say it in Somali, I would do that too. Nosotros, los pediatras, los médicos, estamos en la lucha. We are in the fight.
I have been a practicing physician for more than 19 years here in Minnesota, and I have never seen this level of chaos and fear in the healthcare for patients and for our healthcare teams. It is tragic and is unthinkable. It is more challenging than the acute part of the pandemic in many ways. I want to share the reality of what physicians, nurses, other specialists, therapists, pharmacists, students, and our state future workforce across Minnesota are seeing right now. These are not just missed opportunities or appointments. These are life and death crises. There is trauma and moral injury. Last week, a patient with kidney cancer vanished from his scheduled visit. When his clinician called, they found he had been detained and moved to Texas without his medications. While legal intervention eventually got his medication to him, we still don't know if he is actually taking his medications. No one deserves to die or suffer because of how they look or how they speak or where they were born. In another case, a patient with insulin-dependent diabetes stopped coming to the clinic. We discovered they were not just not out of medicine, but they were out of food. They were rationing both the insulin and their meals without knowing how to adjust insulin. We are seeing levels of food insecurity that are simply horrific. A pregnant mother missed her checkup and stopped answering her phone. A nurse went to her home and found her 8 centimeters dilated. Laboring alone and terrified to seek help. She delivered just 2 hours after the nurse finally convinced her it was safe to go to the hospital. The cycle of fear is claiming lives. Recently, a patient discharged from the hospital missed their follow-up because they were too afraid to leave the home. What should have been a routine wound care appointment turned into a life-threatening case of sepsis. A simple office visit would have solved them from returning to the ICU, and we know our ICUs are already filled. The trauma we are witnessing is horrific. In our clinic parking lot, a mother and a son were forcefully separated from while trying to fill a prescription for a seizure medication. The trauma triggered a medical crisis. The son was rushed to the hospital in the midst of a seizure, while his mother was sent to a detention center in Texas.
I work overnights at Children's, and I had a patient show up at 4:30 in the morning. I might start crying. She had 4 children with influenza, vomiting, diarrhea at home. She had to triage, self-triage, and think which is the sickest kid. So all night, this lady was watching out of her window. She said, when I felt that the road was clear, she brought her 13-year-old in. And she had a 6-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 3-year-old at home with worse symptoms than him. But she said they wouldn't know what to do if ICE vehicle was around. And there is this 13-year-old who has not known anything else except the United States of America, sitting there, traumatized, lethargic, dehydrated to no limits. So I think we are endangering these children, not only for their illness from today, but they're going to be traumatized, an entire generation, for which mental health resources would need to be unlimited for the next several years.
Last week, ICE agents accompanied a patient into the emergency room of our hospital, worrying other patients and care providers alike by their presence and uncertain levels of access. The presence of these agents at points of clinical care intimidates patients, threatens their privacy, and obstructs access to care. Many of our patients, undocumented immigrants, naturalized citizens, and U.S.-born citizens alike, fear leaving their homes for access to health care. They express to us a feeling of being hunted. Our patients are missing, canceling, or deferring important appointments for prenatal care out of fear of being targeted by immigration officials in their place of care. Anecdotally, many of our labor and delivery triage units are seeing lower volumes as a sign that individuals are not seeking out care with urgent concerns. Requests for resources for home births are up significantly, even among patients who had never previously considered this or for who it is not a safe option, and that is probably the most common thing I am seeing discussed amongst healthcare professionals. Some are birthing in the hospital alone, with no family, friends, or personal support present due to detainment or fear thereof. Patients presenting to outlying hospitals in greater Minnesota with serious conditions are refusing transfer to the metro area for higher level of care. The impact of intimidation and profiling on patient care and outcomes is real and may perpetuate already existing disparities in healthcare. We want to assure our local communities that individual providers, clinic groups, and hospitals are working to increase home health visits, mobile visits, and telehealth care, while also solidifying and strengthening on-site protocols to address our patients' needs in a safe manner.
There you heard from Minnesota physicians. They held a press conference detailing obstructions to care caused by ICE agents in Minnesota. Again, that's the first time that we played any highlights from that press conference on any platforms here at Fox. And it's been an afternoon of press conferences here, Paul. We've had a number that we've been tracking, from the President of the United States to Border Patrol Chief Greg Bavino to the one about Pastor David Easterwood to now these Minnesota physicians.
I think it's clear that it's touching like every aspect of life at this point. And, whether you're pro, whether you're It's this presence of ICE here is just touching every single corner of what it is to be living here in Minnesota right now.
Yeah.
And to hear from those physicians about people missing care, it's just completely inhumane. It's awful.
Yeah.
So I guess it just begs that question of like if what they're trying to achieve, at what cost, is the sort of main question I would have for someone in power.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions to be asked here, and a lot of people that are just out there hurting, out there confused, out there asking a lot of questions. We saw some very passionate speeches at Government Center earlier today with the rally calling for the resignation of City's Church Pastor David Easterwood. This one with the physicians had a much more somber tone, as you're seeing even this presence of ICE even affecting hospitals and people that work on healthcare teams.
Yeah, just people so terrified to leave their home that they can't even go and get health care. It's just a shocking thing and when you hear it put so bluntly by those physicians, obviously they care, but they're just sort of putting it straight out there for you to process it. It's really, really tough to hear. So, hopefully something happens soon and these people are able to be able to go and see a doctor without fear for being completely ripped away from their families.
Yes. Hopefully so. We are going to bring you to the 5 o'clock news here at Fox 9. We're going to go to commercial break. Paul, I want to bring you back into the conversation here. I think we have a couple of options of what to do with our next segment here. The
Dealer's choice. What are we going to do for the show?
We do have a choice. President Trump marked 1 year in office today. Commented on Minnesota a ton during that press conference. And then Greg Bovino obviously held a press conference here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, so I think my gut is leaning towards, while we wouldn't necessarily go for something that's a national story, but Trump announcing his accomplishments in his first year in office, he did use that opportunity to speak about the operations that are taking place here in Minnesota. So my gut is telling me that we should probably hear about that, because I think you will probably get a little bit more information about that in the 5 o'clock news and some conversations around what he had to say there. So if you're joining us now and you're going to stick around for the 5 o'clock news, which you absolutely should, I think that might just give you a little bit more context heading into the news broadcast. Thoughts, Adam?
I like the call. That's what I would have done too. So that's why you're a great executive producer. We're going to go to commercial break here. When we come back, President Trump live from the White House, marking 1 year back in office and commenting a good amount on the state of Minnesota and ICE's presence here. Don't go anywhere. President Trump will come back. Welcome back here to the afternoon shift. We're going to be bringing you all the way to the Fox 9 News at 5 o'clock. But before we do that, President Trump spoke earlier today from the White House. He marked his 1 full year back in the White House. He was touting some of his accomplishments. And while he was touting a lot of his accomplishments, he had made a number of remarks about the state of Minnesota and ICE's presence here. Let's take a listen to what the president had to say.
These are accomplishments. We have a lot of accomplishments. And as you know, this is the anniversary, first anniversary, January 20th. And it's been an amazing period of time. We have a book that I'm not going to read to you, but these are the accomplishments of what we've produced. All page after page after page, individual things. I could stand here and read it for a week and we wouldn't be finished. But we've done more than any other administration has done by far in terms of military, in terms of ending wars, in terms of completing wars. Nobody's really seen very much like it. I think it's appropriate that because Minnesota is so much in the fray, and I say to my people all the time, and they're so busy doing other things, they don't say it like they should. They're apprehending murderers and drug dealers and a lot of bad people, and these are just some of the more recent ones that we have, and I can show you some of the people, vicious, many of them murderers. These are all out of Minnesota, just Minnesota. I say, why don't you talk about that more? Because people don't know. Do you want to live with these people? International murder. These are people that are living, they're apprehended and either put in jails in their country from where they came, and the countries respect us, and so they actually put them there. In the old days, they didn't respect our country. Biden wouldn't do this because he let them all in. You know, if you didn't have open border policies of Biden, none of this, all of the things that all of the time that we spend talking about Minnesota and everything else, most of them are coming from out of the country. And it's been caused by a previous administration. Look at this, one after one. Boy, these are rough characters. These are all criminal, illegal aliens that, in many cases, they're murderers, they're drug lords, drug dealers, they're the mentally insane. There's some of them who are brutal killers, they're mentally insane. They're killers, but they're insane. These are just in Minnesota. In California, it's worse. In other states, it's worse. No, Minnesota, the crime is incredible. The financial crimes are incredible. And the problem is because of the agitators and insurrectionists, whatever you want, troublemakers, but they're paid agitators and insurrectionists. Nobody talks about the fact that $19 billion at a minimum is missing in Minnesota, given to a large degree by Somalians. They've taken it. Somalians, can you imagine? And they don't do it. A lot of very low IQ people, they don't do it. Other people work it out, and they get them money, and they go out and buy Mercedes-Benzes, and they come from here, they have no money. They never had money. They never had a life. They never had a government. They never had a country, because there's basically no country. Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country. And if it is a country, it's considered just about the worst in the world. They come here and they become rich and they don't have a job. I was told that Ilhan Omar is worth $30 million. She never had a job. She's a crooked congressman. So here's another one. And I have, oh, by the way, we just took out, these are all what ICE is doing. And it's a dangerous job. These are rough people. Weapons. This one here is very bad. I'm going through this because I think we have plenty of time. I'm going to beautiful place in Switzerland where we'll be, I'm sure I'm very happily awaited for. In Switzerland, they don't know about this. They don't have this problem. They have other problems, but they don't have this problem. Look, killed somebody. Look, and these are rough people. These are not, this was all allowed into our country through open borders. These dumbest policies, you know, men and women's sports is dumb. But to me, having an open border for the world to come in, drug dealers and prisoners. Venezuela, as an example, opened their prisons into the United States. That's why one of the reasons I felt so strongly against Venezuela. Now I'm loving Venezuela. They've been working with us so well. It's been so nice. And an unbelievably nice woman also did a very incredible thing, as you know, a few days ago. We're talking to her, and maybe we can get her involved in some way. I'd love to be able to do that. Maria, maybe we can do that. But we're dealing with the people and the president and all of the people in Venezuela, and we've been doing great. The oil companies are getting ready to make massive investments there. They have more oil than even Saudi Arabia. There you go. These are rough water. This is all Minnesota, every one of them. This is one state out of many. And these people are, let's see, yeah, these are all, so far, people that came from outside of the country. They were allowed in by Sleepy Joe Biden, Crooked Joe Biden, whichever you like. You can call him whatever you like. They're both right. He's sleepy and he's crooked. He was the worst president we've ever had. And we've had some bad ones, too. I can tell you, all you have to do is look at trade. You're not getting bored with this, right? I hope you don't. But these are people that you have to see. Strong-arm rape, aggravated assault with a weapon, and many other crimes. Gang member, known as one of the toughest people around. These are tough people. So this is what the people are trying to protect, because all ICE wants to do is get them out of our country, bring them to prisons and jails and mental institutions from where they came. That's all they want to do. They're patriots, and they have to be abused by guys like Don Lemon, who's a loser, lightweight. I saw him the way he walked in that church. It was terrible. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. He was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible yesterday. Look at it here. 24 convictions. 24 times convicted. They're not charges. These are convictions. So he comes from outside the country. Do you think he's going to be good here? He's convicted 24 times. He's going to be good here, right? It doesn't work that way. It's a man murder. It's one of many. One of many. All they want to do is get him out. They want to take him out of our country. And we're met with paid agitators and insurrectionists, troublemakers. They're paid. You know, when the woman was shot, and I felt terribly about that. And I understand both sides of it. But when she was shot, there was another woman that was screaming shame, 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 right? You saw it. So loud. Like a professional opera singer. She was so loud and so professional. She wasn't a woman that was hurt, like, oh, my heart's injured. She was a professional. She's shame, shame. She's screaming, shame, shame. I said, that's not a normal person. That's a professional. These are professional agitators and professional people that want to see our country do badly. But that's not happening because we have the hottest country anywhere in the world, despite this stuff. Look at this. All top of the line criminals. They're not going to be good. They're not going to be well behaved here. I could do thousands. We had over 3,000 in the last fairly short while. Just in Minnesota. What's the number, Carol? 10,000.
10,000 criminals arrested in Minnesota
10,000 criminals. And these are serious criminals. Now, how can a place with 10,000 criminals, how can you have a state? And yet they're fighting us. Yeah, I like that guy. He keeps nodding to me. You agree with me, I guess. I like him. I don't know who he is, but I like him. He keeps nodding. He says, you're right. He's obviously a little on the right side, maybe. Look. These are rough ones. So we just took this off a stack. We have many stacks like this. Like, I could go 30 times what I'm showing you now. Relations with Hezbollah, that's nice. Why do we allow them in our country?
There you had President Donald Trump earlier today marking 1 year back in office, touting his accomplishments. A number of those were related, as he claims, to Minnesota and the ICE operations here. You also heard the president comment on the killing of Renee Good. We're coming up on the 2-week anniversary of that tomorrow. The president said he felt terribly about that, and then commented about a protester that was also there at the scene of that incident. So it's been an afternoon of press conferences here. You just saw the president, Greg Bovino, preceded our show today. We came on the air with a press conference calling for the resignation of Pastor David Easterwood, who is alleged to be a ICE field operations officer in St. Paul, and then of course the Minnesota physicians. Talking about the obstructions to care caused by ICE agents happening in Minnesota. It's been an absolutely jam-packed day here. Paul, what do you say? I think we're going to get to do it again tomorrow, yeah?
We'll be back. We'll be back here tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
We will be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. But right now, we're going to bring you to the Fox 9 News at 5 o'clock. Kelsey Carlson and Simone Woolridge are standing by at the desk. Thank you all so much for joining us here on this Tuesday, January 20th. And like Paul said, we'll be back tomorrow bringing you all the latest local news that's happening here in the Twin Cities, especially as it pertains to this ongoing ICE story, which seems like it continues to evolve each and every day. The big headline from our show today, again, protesters calling for the resignation of the pastor of City's Church in St. Paul, David Easterwood. I'm Adam Lorenz for the rest of for the afternoon shift team. We thank you so much for tuning in today. The Fox 9 News at 5 o'clock with Kelsey and Simone starts right now.